What's up, folks? How we doing? Thanks for checking out the video. I have an older video that goes over this. God, I can't remember. It's been several years since I published that video, and just the recording on that is just kind of rough. So I'm going to go over this stretch of river again for you guys. Maybe give a little bit more insight and detail than my previous video from 3 or 4 years ago. But I'll tag each video on each other, so check up at the cards in the upper left hand corner of the screen, hit that little information button, and you can jump back and forth between the two. So in this video we're going to talk about kayaking and fishing between Buford Dam and McGinnis Ferry Road. There is a boat ramp at each location, and there is parking for each location. Keep in mind there can be limited parking at both Buford Dam and McGinnis Ferry Road in the summertime. So April, May, June, July, August is usually peak season for getting out on the Chattahoochee River and fishing and paddling and tubing or whatever. Good thing is this stretch of the river, there isn't a whole lot of tubing. The water is just freezing cold. It comes out of the bottom of Buford Dam here, which is like 200 plus foot. And it is just ice cold. It comes out through here, and people don't really want to stay in it for as long as what this trip is going to take. Now, if you set in at Buford Dam and you paddle all the way down to McGinnis Ferry, that is about an all-day trip. If you get out at 8, 9 o'clock, you're not getting off the water till 3 or 4, especially if you stop and fish on some of the rocks and the beaches and that sort of thing along the way. So keep that in mind. Something else I'm always mentioning in all of these videos, the best way to shuttle and handle like kayaks and that sort of thing is go with friends and meet at the takeout location. So say you've got 3 friends, 2 vehicles. Both vehicles meet at the takeout location. Load everything into one vehicle, kayaks, fishing equipment, people, all that. Leave one vehicle here at McGinnis Ferry Road. Then come up, park at Buford Dam with the other vehicle. That way when you get down to McGinnis Ferry, you have a vehicle to get you back up. That's the best way to do that. That's the way we've always done it. So just that's the way it's done. So, all right, we're going to get into the river itself here. We are going to scroll down to Buford Dam. There's signs on this bridge that say no boats. So they don't want you to put boats way back up in here. There's just all sorts of bad things that can happen. This is solid rock on all sides. There's solid rock rubble underneath the water here. I think it's too deep to stand up in. I'm sure there are monster fish that just live in this section of the river, but it's impossible to fish, and it's illegal to get a boat or anything back up in there. So you may be enticed to do it. You can come out here on this bridge and throw baits, but it's a tight spot. So typically you're launching from the launch section right here. This is all, you know, I wouldn't say class 1 whitewater, but the water's ripping through here pretty quick. It's really cold, and there's a lot of rock. As you can see, this orange stuff, red stuff right here is all the river rock, the bedrock on the bottom of the river. As you paddle and make your way down the river, this is a popular fly fishing area. So for the first several hundred yards down until you get to about Bowman's Island, which is this, we'll get into that in a minute. And if you're on a Saturday or a Sunday peak season, expect there to be lots of people waiting or out on these rocks, fly fishing or fishing or hanging out. Try not to conflict with people's fishing spots or paddle right through the middle of it, and keep an eye out if someone's got a fish on, because you know, you just don't want to collide and ruin somebody else's day. So it's possible here, because some of the heavy lanes that you want to use to kayak through are also going to be some of the lanes that people are fishing on. So as we go down here, this is Bowman's Island, uninhabited. There's no buildings or anything on it. I've got out on it on the shore a little bit, but haven't really explored the island. My dad lives real close to here. But as you hit Bowman's Island, you want to stay right in a kayak. The first real rapid you're going to have to kind of negotiate with is going to be this little section. for the most part, you'll paddle through this way, come down, paddle, and then cut across. Usually there's kind of a ledge right here that you don't want to get into. But it's fun. It's class 1 paddling. It's great for beginners, and it'll kind of help you get your feet wet. Big rule of thumb I tell everybody that's new to paddling this type of water: don't get sideways, right? Don't let your boat get sideways in the river. Keep your bow facing downstream and your stern facing upstream, and find where the flows are and hit those flows, and don't allow the water to get you sideways. So if you get sideways, you can flip over. So as we go on down, it smooths out a little bit. Pretty easy water here. I'll show you a location. That's right here. So the biggest trout I've ever seen in the Chattahoochee River was about as long as my arm, and I got long arms. But he was hanging out in this area, and this is the type of habitat that you fish a lot in the Chattahoochee River, where there's down timber, trees that have fallen off the bank, laying out in the water. There's down timber. There's tons of locations for trout to hide up underneath these trees, get up in the middle, and there's large trout here. Like I said, I've seen them the size of my arm. And stretch your arm out, look at the tip of your fingers to your shoulder. I'm 6'2". That's a long fish. You know, that is double digits. And you know, he's been in the river for a while and didn't want anything to do with me at all. So you got to sneak up on those guys, because if they see you, the game is over. So this is the first spot that I always spend a little time in because of that experience. I know there's big fish there. They're just hard to get. So as you go around your first bend, there's a nice shoal here. This is going to be challenging for some beginner kayakers, because you have to negotiate these rocks. Again, if you get stuck on one of these rocks, you know, the water pressure can just flip you around sideways, and then you're dumping in the river. So this is usually a spot where a lot of beginners dump out at. The track I take is I stay to the left here, stay to the left, and then cut all the way over to right here. There's a heavy flow section here in the middle of the river where it just kind of drops off into a ramp. Of course, you don't want to get stuck in here. And it's easy to kind of scrub the bottom of your kayak through here as well too. So yeah, I'll come right through there and then come that way. Another little set of shoals down here merges at the back end of Bowman's Island. Now as we go down, it's really going to flatten out a lot. This is a great fishing area. So when I fish this, I'll typically paddle right by this area. They stock it right at the ramp. There's a lot of people on foot and wading fishing here in this stretch. And just to avoid getting, I guess, you know, combat fishing with these guys, I'll just paddle right through, barely even wet a line, and I won't start fishing until I get to this spot. And then once you get here, it's basically kayakers only through here. So as we go down, this is the fish hatchery. This is one of the hatcheries they use to grow the trout that they put in the river. There is also, see if we can see it. Yeah, there's also a little tube that's kind of a exhaust for the fish hatchery. There's always trout here, always. Sometimes people will park at the fish hatchery and walk down and fish just right here where this water is always flowing. I think it's an exhaust for the pins. They might even stalk the river through this tube. Just put the fish in, boom, 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 and they're in the river. I don't know that to be certain. But like I said, it's a good spot. There's always people here fishing. Most of the fish you're catching is a stalker fish, but there may be big trouts that hang around to eat those stalkers in that area. So always fish that spot. There's timber on both sides of the river. I like to stick to the deeper side just for that chance to maybe catch a trout that's been in there for a few seasons, as opposed to the young ones that are small. As we go on down, tons and tons of timber. That's a regular thing on the Chattahoochee. This is also a deep spot and a beach. We always stop here. Come around. You may recognize this in some of my videos. Hang on, I did a drone flight here at one point in time. Let's go up. It kind of, yep, drone flight right through here. There's a beach. You can get out and eat lunch, hang out. This may be when the water's up because there's usually more of that rock exposed. You can walk from this beach over to the tip of this rock and throw. This is all deep water. Some of it's 14, 15 foot deep, and trees and timber and that sort of thing at the bottom. So another great spot to fish. Usually when you see a bend in the river, it slows the water down, it carves into the bottom a little bit, erodes it, and you can get some deep fishable waters there. Here is the one real rapid that you're going to have to deal with on this stretch of river. This is what's called 20 Rock. We've called it 20 Rock for years because of its proximity to Highway 20, which is just downstream. You'll see that in a second. This does look like when they're generating water because that's usually a rock that you can walk around. As you can see, there's water dumping over it. But water can get up higher than the rock. It can completely submerge this rock depending on how hard they're pushing that water through. So this is usually where beginner kayakers get nervous. Coming right through here, you can hear this water just, it's loud. The way you want to go is you want to cut through right here. And then once you get to about this spot, turn downstream and hit it hard straight. One thing to keep an eye out, there's a whirlpool right here that just does the water that does this. And if you get your nose of the kayak in the whirlpool, it's going to flip you around, and you do not want to be sideways or backwards going through this. This is 3-4 foot waves in some cases, and it just like dragon tails all the way down, and then it'll wash out around this area. So you'll get to about right here. You know, bow downstream, stern upstream, keep it that way, and paddle hard through this this rapid, and then ride it out and around. This is also the location where the Georgia state record brown trout was caught a couple years ago. 20-something pounds, I think. It's a monster. Underneath this rapid are old canoes and probably cell phones and tackle boxes, and lots of people flipped over here. So I'm sure there's all kinds of stuff down there, but I'm sure there's also lots of big trout that hang out in this rapid, and it's hard to get in there and fish. It's hard to get your bait down. So all this is good fishing water. As we're going down, of course, you know, more of the same, down timber on the sides. So we're going down. This is Highway 20. Back in the day, we used to park over here at these abandoned buildings and carry our kayaks down and launch here. Over the past few years, they've been doing construction, as you can see. I don't know if they're making a park. I don't know if they're making a boat launch. I don't know what they're doing. But it's muddied up the water a little bit. A lot of folks, especially fly anglers, trout anglers downstream, don't like them screwing this area up and being in here for so long. But they're building another bridge. This is one of the more impossible spots to pass, whether you live in Buford area or Cumming area. You know, if you live in the Atlanta area, just getting across the river can be a pain sometimes because there's only so many bridges. So they're adding another lane, another couple lanes here to help with the flow of traffic. Hopefully they add a little boat ramp down here so you can park, launch from here, and just, you know, paddle Buford Dam to here or paddle here to McGinnis Ferry. So we'll see what happens there. Moving on down, the rest of this is basically shoals. You're not going to hit any real rapids. There's a lot of big rocks that you can get out on, eat lunch, fish from. Also, another spot you always kind of want to hit when you're fishing the Chattahoochee River is the mouths of creeks. Like right here, you'll see bass in there. You'll get some surprise catches around the mouths of creeks, and the trout also hang out around in there too. Going on down, of course, lots of residential areas. You'll see a lot of people on the river in the summertime. Canoeing and kayaking has gotten insanely popular. Back in the day, we'd float this and there would be nobody out on the river in June, you know, and these days we get out there and you'll see 50 kayaks. You know, it's just the way things have gotten. But you'll also see a lot of the residential people, kids and whatever, hanging out along the sides of the river. Always stay in your boat. It's okay to get out on the shore, but don't get in people's backyards or use their chairs or little patios or anything. They don't like that a whole lot. Again, small, maybe class 1 rapid. You just come through, shoot through here, boom, done. It's not a big deal. And as you go on down, the very next boat ramp that you're going to hit from this location is going to be McGinnis Ferry. So it's a lot of the same. You have these little rocky outcroppings. That's going to be shoals right through there. I'm sorry, I completely missed this. Settles Bridge is right here. Let's put a marker down. This is Settles Bridge. So if you wanted to do a half day on this trip, you could go Buford Dam to Settles Bridge. We've done that 1,000 times too. I can't believe I forgot about this. I went to North Point High School, which is right down the road from here, so we'd come down here all the time when we were in high school. So Settles Bridge right there. So there is a ramp right here at Settles Bridge. Actually, you can't miss Settles Bridge because there's this big old, scoot around to the ramp. This big old iron bridge, single lane for cars from way back in the day. It's no longer in use. It's blocked off. They've destroyed how you get on it on both sides. And then right here with the little Christmas trees, that is where the ramp is at. So you can pull your kayaks out of here, no problem. There's also parking at Settles Bridge too. So if you want to do kind of a half day between Buford Dam and Settles, that's a good location to do that. And you can't miss it because Settles Bridge has that big bridge there. So if you keep going past Settles, it's going to be Settles Bridge to McGinnis Ferry, and that's maybe another hour or two tops. It's easy paddling. You know, you'll get a ledge or a little strainer here or there, but nothing that's really going to be near as challenging like 20 Rock. Again, another bend in the river. This is a spot where it gets real deep, and there's a beach there, so you can pull out, hang out if you want. It's a great spot for that. And there's a creek that feeds into that deep water as well too. So this is a really good fishing spot because of the deep water, because of the creek, and because of the bend. So as we go on down this last stretch, and you'll see McGinnis Ferry Road. Back to your takeout location. So all in all, McGinnis Ferry to Buford Dam, that is an all-day trip. It's going to take you all day, 6-7 hours, especially if you fish. Add another hour or two onto that because you may stop and get out and fish and get lunch or whatever. So if you want to do this whole stretch, get out there early. You can also turn it into a half day by doing Buford Dam to Settles, or you can do Settles Bridge to McGinnis Ferry. Again, this is trout fishing, so be sure to use trout class tackle and trout lures. So there it is, folks. Buford Dam, Settles Bridge to McGinnis Ferry. Thanks for checking out the video. If y'all have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below. Remember to please subscribe and like the video, and we will talk at you later. Take care.